Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Office Hours special show. We've all watched as what were once exclusively desktop-based tools like non-linear linear video editing systems start migrating toward being more cloud-based solutions. It's a trend that's clearly going to continue. To help you get a closer look at this area of production, I'm delighted to welcome to Office Hours today Sumit Rai. Sumit is the co-founder of Elevate.io, the web-based video editing platform. He also serves as the chief product officer at Blackbird PLC, a United Kingdom-based software as a service provider. We'll be talking to him over the course of today. Also joining us as the show reader is CJ Covell from Cincinnati, Ohio, a very familiar face to all of our Office Hours regulars. By the way, if you'd like to put in a question in the show for Sumit, let me throw up the QR code here, and you can use this. Just take a picture of it, and that's going to get you into the question queue directly. So if you have questions for Sumit about automation, AI, or collaborative editing in general, just use the QR code, take a snap of it, and that'll get you kind of into the queue. All right, that takes care of all my housekeeping functions, so it's time for me to say hello and welcome, Sumit. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for having me on this such an esteemed show as Office Hours. It's great to be here.
Well, we're delighted to have you in place today. Let me start this way. In the marketing materials, Elevate.io is described as the world's first co-creation platform built specifically for teams. Can you break that down a little for us? Tell us what the product's all about.
Sure. So, as I think we were talking before, the whole premise for Elevate.io came out of the back of 2 decades of working in video production myself, and at the last role that I was in, working on Vegas Pro, we were building this product during COVID, and we were disparate team in different locations, and we were using code source repositories that were all globalized and able to be worked on from any location. We were using Microsoft Teams, we were using Figma for design, we were using other tools to control everything, but we were building a product that ran on one machine, was used by one person, and the project never really kind of got off the machine, off each of the machines. And it's the same story for all the high-end video editing tools, all of the nonlinear tools. There are, of course, some sharing capabilities that you can bolt on, but natively, these are tools where they get installed on a machine, the project starts on the machine, the project remains on the machine, the project dies on the machine. And it just dawned on us at the time, sort of 3 years ago, when I started working at Blackbird, that we really need to build something that is much more aligned with what other tools that are out there that people are using for productivity, how they're focused. And a lot of that focus was Teams. That's one of the biggest things that we've seen is like a shift, I guess, in the last 10 to 15 years is it's no longer someone working on a document and then printing it off and faxing it or emailing it or to somebody else and they're redlining it. And then, there's one person who's like the controller. We've moved so much more towards real-time systems where data is just immediately changed. But video is literally not moved at all, really, for the last 20 years. It's been the same process. And
So go ahead.
no,
Continue. Well, I
well,
was just going to say, there's been so much change in that area. When I started out in this, nobody had networks and massive amounts of storage at home and things like that. And we saw all of that come in. There's got to be this approach has to touch a lot of things like storage and sharing systems and all of that. I'm sure people are interested in. Can you give us a little bit about maybe how this system how its approach is similar to or different from traditional everything on your desk kind of stuff?
if we look at just a little bit further, even, and we say, okay, where did it even come from? The whole nonlinear thing. So we see it as like the first generation of video editing was obviously tape based, and obviously everything remained on tape. That's the nature of it.
A/B roll edit systems. I remember them
And
well.
we loved them, and they were great, and they were robust. Let's call them that. But then the sort of second generation was that introduction of Avid, where all of a sudden you're using the product as an offline and you digitize it. And obviously storage was expensive in those days, but you're using the product just to really do the creative bit of it. And then it obviously goes off and gets reconformed or online somewhere else.
Mhm.
Then the stage, which I believe we're in at the moment, which is that phase three, which is the final cuts, it's the DaVinci, it's the Premiere, it's where the computers are quick enough to process an online quality. their storage is cheap enough to buy and the data rates are fast enough, but people are still bolting on hard drives for projects and then archiving them in a cupboard and just with a like a Sharpie marker on them to say which project it was. They'll never be touched again, but they're there. They get lost. So we've seen a lot of people, and of course there are the SAN systems, and they're quite big and they're quite complicated. Whereas what we feel is like the fourth generation is that we do all that for you. You don't have to worry about any of that. We use Amazon as a storage provider, so it's essentially unlimited, the storage that we have access to. And because the way that our product works, which I'll be showing you a little bit later, it works in a proxy. So you upload the full resolution, we create a proxy that makes it easy to work with on the web. That makes it very lightweight and very easily accessible, a little bit similar to sort of offline and online historically. But we store all the master files. And so all of that requirement for you to worry about the hardware, or to worry about storage, or to worry about archive, all of that is just completely removed. It's not even a consideration.
Oops, I can hear you, Bill.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, my mistake there. So how does Elevate help us teamwork? Is it a system like bin locking and the rest of the things that some of us who have done work like this, how do different areas touch the timeline and coordinate their work against each other?
It's a very, I mean, the whole platform is just it's accessible through the web browser. Maybe it's not a bad time for us to jump in and actually look at it, because I think that'll just make it a lot clearer. So
why talk when we can see it?
So if I pull up my screen right now, you'll see this is just a regular web browser. This is just Google Chrome running on my Mac. But this will run on a Chromebook with 4 gigabytes of memory. So this can be literally a $150 machine.
So that lightweight a hardware system, and you're still functioning.
There's really not a lot that we need because of the way in which we've architected this, where the heavy work is done on the server side. The front end is just responsible for of course, the better the machine, the smoother things will run, because that's just the nature of computers. And I'm running on a 5-year-old Mac, and it has absolutely no problem running that. But it's a pure web-based solution. Like I said, the whole thing just accessible from everywhere. I'm in London, but this is actually being run out of the US. That's where our main data centers are. So like a lot of popular productivity software, you have your projects, you have your teams. I'm a member of lots of teams. As I mentioned, Teams is a big focus of ours. And then you have access to all of the projects that you've ever worked on as a group. And you have access to all of the media, and you can categorize it, put it into folders. And you can just always know that if you shot something last year and you had it in the system, it'll still be there. You could just drag it into a new project. But let's look at a project and look at how they sort of work. So we'll take this one here. When the editor loads up, we've immediately got access to what is a very familiar timeline. You can zoom around that nice and easily. One of the things that sort of I've learned in all my time of video editing is the timeline is just so crucial towards not just power users, but anybody who's really doing any kind of serious editing. We all know just how fluid that timeline needs to be and how accurate it needs to be. So a real big push for us was to make sure this is absolutely frame accurate. I can J, K, and L backwards and forwards. It makes no difference to me. And this is something that we'll talk about a little bit later, but like, well, how will we able to do this? And of course, you can add things like text. You can add logos. You can add graphics. In this, I've got all of this footage that we just put together is all from a stock library that's built directly into the platform. So if for whatever reason we wanted to add in a domestic cat, not that he's going to be chilling in out there, but we can immediately see that and go, okay, there's a cat that doesn't have any place in the Safari video, but I'm going to put him down here, and he's going to be downloaded and immediately converted. The same way we could have shot this on an iPhone, we could have shot something on a higher end ProRes camera, and you can throw it directly into the system, into the project, where all of the content is just available for us right here.
What's the ingest and upload schema like? Obviously, people are getting cameras that shoot are bigger and bigger formats. We're up to 8K and beyond now.
Yeah.
What's optimized? What do you suggest people use? What are most people using this?
Most people are actually, most of our users are using still H.264. That's like still the common acquisition format that we're seeing.
Yeah.
We do support the sort of higher end formats. We do support ProRes, and we will be expanding into some of the higher end ones, and especially doing things like color management for log. We're not there yet, but we are absolutely working on that. So that's going to be a big part of our world, going forward. But as I mentioned before, one of the nicest things about this is I can really go back and I can actually access anything within this project that may be in another project, because it's stored in the team, it's stored in the media database. So content that's just come from, months ago or years ago, I can immediately just grab and say, you know what, even to add to this video, I'm just going to literally drag on another piece of media that's come, this zebra video. It looks like it needs to be scaled up a bit. And that's another thing, actually. You can move things around and manipulate things, as if you were using graphic software. Because that's another thing that we've sort of found when we built this was the video world has traditionally come from that world we said before, A/B editing, tape machine mentality, everything's a plate. And actually, the truth is most people starting today have no reason for that legacy at all. It just doesn't make any sense. And we've seen that shift. Remember when we used to label files by real name? Like that moved away. I don't remember when, but at least 15 years ago, that the notion of a reel just has disappeared because there are no reels, right? They don't exist.
What about metadata and markup? How does that function inside the system?
So at the moment, we catalog everything with media info. We get all of the files, attributes, and we make that available to the users. We haven't yet, but we absolutely are planning to be building out the metadata so that you can add a lot of custom data, which will help with search. We haven't built that in. This product is very new. It's only hit the market this year. It's rapidly evolving, and I'm hopefully going to give you guys a sneak peek of some of the more exciting features that are coming up. But in terms of just a general, let's stick that cat into the video. So of course you get all of the regular editing tools, trimming, obviously
Sure.
the immediate preview. We'll chuck our little kitty in there, and then he's able to. We'll give him a little fade on the beginning.
It's making me nervous for that little guy.
Yeah. The other thing which is pretty cool is that we have a lot of built-in effects. So you get immediate real-time effects, even though this is running in a browser, because we utilize the GPU for a lot of stuff. Nice. We've got the built-in looks, so we can give him a nice Victorian look or something like that, and of course tweak the some of the color settings just to make it how we want. So what we've really tried to do is to give people what is the professional level editing that they need, but we're absolutely not competing with the top end NLEs. If you're making a Netflix series, then of course you're going to use something at the top end.
Sure, but that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, and you know what? We that's what I would do if I was doing it. So we're not trying to compete there because we don't have advanced motion capture and motion tracking and things like this. But what we do have is all the tools that people need to produce, like let's just say 99% of the content that is made today. So that's everything from YouTubers to marketing teams to education to other environments where actually they don't want the complication of the higher end systems, but they still need the fidelity and the professionalism of something. And so the lower end tools don't work for them because they're designed really for very short form video and maybe just an Instagram reel, and that's it. But they don't require, they don't want to have a great expensive computer and worry about the upgrades and the licensing of large installed software, things like that.
What's the back end look like in terms of EDLs or export of finished products out there? What does it create?
At the moment, we are going to be supporting open timelines, so you will be able to get it out into a format that will be useful. But right now, at the moment, you can go out and you can export video up into Ultra HD in H.264 or HEVC. And we have an experimental player, which is like an online player as well that we're trialing at the moment. So at the moment, the output is really a digital file, but obviously we have had users who have said, look, I want to do my project here, do the creative. And because of the collaborative element, I'd love to be able to author this with everybody and then take it offline and maybe grade it in DaVinci, which is completely reasonable. So we
Sure,
will be
absolutely.
supporting that.
CJ has a question for you. CJ, what's up?
Yeah, I think the thing that has most interested me just watching you pop around this interface is how fluid it seems to be. Even when zooming in and out on the timeline, I've had desktop programs on a under-resourced machine that don't react that quickly. But specifically, it's the scrubbing that I'm most impressed with. You being able to scrub backwards and forwards and have that feeling of what the frames are, and your eyes might catch something. How are you achieving that sort of fluidity, and it's coming in as effectively compressed over the internet?
This is the biggest head start we got at the beginning of Elevate.io. Is obviously we're born out of Blackbird PLC, the company that is known for doing online video editing at some of the biggest sports events that take place across the globe. And that was almost our starting point, was like, look, if we're already providing the technology and we're providing the capability for dozens of newsrooms around the world to access these large global sporting events and pull down videos and assemble them together, all the technology has been built out over the last 20 years within Blackbird to enable that. And that is our own custom codec. So we have our own codec, which is heavily patented, which is perfectly designed to be able to give that smooth motion backward and forward and very fast seek. And it's quite clever the way it works, because even when I'm scrubbing around and I could go, let's just say I go back to my team and I go and find some content that we have no idea like that this was going to be used today. Was not something that we were planning on doing, something a bit longer. Let's find something with a little bit of length attached to it. That will be probably better. Like, here we go. I don't know what this is, but there's a 45-minute video that we've just loaded in. Again, this is another point. Not a lot of web products can deal with more than 10 seconds, let alone 45 minutes. I mean, we've run this tests up to 12 hours.
Wow.
And what you'll notice is that immediately I get pretty good seek across the product, across the video. And the reason is that we're filling in keyframes sporadically. So where you think you're getting exactly the keyframe, of course, we're so zoomed out that you can't notice, and we're going to the closest keyframe that we have. And then when you settle on something, we build up around that, and we build it out so that your experience, the moment you've settled here, you're immediately into like JKNL, forwards, backwards. It's not a very visual video, that one, but if we settle on something like here, you'll immediately say, okay, well, like the user can play forwards and then go backwards and move around there. So really, it is the fact that every video that we ingest into the product, we convert into the Blackbird format. And at the moment, we're in Blackbird 9. We're going to be building out a new version, which hopefully will come out in 2026. And that will be an even higher fidelity. It'll actually be quite a smart model that will give us even more quality and more accuracy, more color accuracy, because we're pretty color accurate, but we want it to be the equivalent as if you were grading on the original file, for example.
So in other words, wherever your playhead starts to rest, you're immediately expanding in both directions around that, and then developing more keyframes and the higher, more granular, I guess, version of the compression, so that you can move back and forth. That's fascinating.
And like the way that streaming's gone, I used to run a streaming business, and streaming moved a lot towards like the Apple HLS format, where it was like, let's deliver a decent chunk of the video, and we'll just deliver them just in time, and it will be a nice long sequence, because people are watching video in one direction. And if you're watching Netflix or YouTube or something streamed online, it's not likely that you need to scoot around it. In fact, we all know how bad the experience of scooting around can be. It's not the best experience, because it's the nature of those codecs. They're designed to run in one direction only. This was entirely designed for editing. It was entirely designed for this purpose. And that's why when you do see, even on NLEs, when you load in an H.264, the experience is nowhere near even as fluid as we are here. In fact, it almost used to be better in the Avid days, where you had a full SCSI RAID and you like AVR 3 or something, and you're just moving back and forth, and the whole thing was really quite fluid because it was asymmetrical. And in this case here, we've obviously moved more towards temporal compression, which is always going to be effective only in one direction, because you don't compress backwards. So for us, it's huge advantage that we had in Elevate, and even building out the UI components. And I'm going to get rid of this 45-minute video and jump back into my edit here.
The cats
Even
are nicer to look at anyway.
yeah, quite. Even building this out and building out the ability to say, okay, you know, like I really want to get the exact frame, you know, and anyone who's edited knows that if you're fighting with something where you're you're not getting the exact information, it's just so infuriating. And for us, like since the beginning of this project, the absolute core non-negotiable element has been that using the timeline has to mean that someone who's come from Final Cut, DaVinci, or Premiere actually is more enlightened by this, rather than sort of like, oh, this is what I'm used to. It's like, actually, no, this is really good.
And then I have one more question for you, and this has to do with my desire with whatever editor I'm using, whether it's Resolve or a Final Cut or Premiere. I'm not going to have a hardware surface most of the time. I'm not going to have a speed editor. I'm not going to have any kind of specialized hardware. So I'm instantly attached to, like you said, my JK and L. I'm going to my B for my blade, my A for my arrow, and all of those things allow me to kind of obscure the interacting with the software to a lower brain process where it's more muscle memory, and that tool gets out of the way. But obviously, for a demo, you want you want the mouse to move around so people can follow it. How deep is your keyboard shortcut integration?
If you look at if you cut to the screen now, I just pulled up the keyboard shortcuts, so you can get an idea. We've built out all the most popular ones. As we add features to the product, we're just going to keep expanding that. And of course, you can map any of the custom controllers onto any of these keystrokes. What we don't allow is a huge amount of customization. That's something that doesn't work so well for modern software, because we need people to have a familiar experience. So we're not allowing a full customization of that.
And now you've spurned one more question, and quickly reading over the keyboard shortcut commands in there, one of the hotkeys that you had was comment. And if you're working with this on with a team of editors or with multiple people, how does that interaction work between people?
That's a great time for us to look at multiplayer and teams. One of the things you'll see is that I could be working on this project. Maybe this project was already worked on by somebody else, and this is a first draft. And of course, because I'm in the team, I'm just loading it up for the in fact, I didn't create this project. This project was actually created by someone else. So I can go in here and I could say, you know what? I'm going to put a comment here. I'm going to message Cal, and I'm going to say, Cal, I don't like the zebra. Like, I just don't. I don't want it. I don't want him.
The zebra is offended.
And what you'll see is that Kel's actually turned up. So I'm not using my playhead is far away. I'm just going to move my playhead out of the way. But you'll see that just by invoking that message, I'm not touching something. Kel's now editing remotely somewhere else because I messaged it to him. He can now put that together, fill it out. And, like I said, I'm not doing this. This is a third-party person who's now in the timeline, and that's multiplayer to us. And what I could do is I can actually click and follow him. So now if he moves his playhead around and sort of starts to preview that video, or like move any of the playhead around, like there, all of a sudden, like we could be on a phone call together, and I'm going to be immediately able to see, and we could talk it through, and I could say, okay, you know what, let's just play that sequence back of the cat, and now he's playing that sequence back. So it means that we have that true, like absolutely true real-time experience as if you were working on a Google Doc together. And what's nice about it is if you're within the vicinity of each other's playheads, as we are, what you'll find is that we can, even if we go up into the bit here where he's added the kitty cat, I can even see his cursor here. So we can actually be like, yeah, let's move it around here. Let's push it out there. Let's do something. And this is something that we, from the outset, when we were building Elevate, we were like, look, this just doesn't exist in the video world. This is not a thing. But it's become the exact thing that people do in Figma, in Canva, in Miro, in other products, in Google Docs, like that way of working. And for us, what we realized is that so much of the production process in video is lost to everything being very linear. And so much of that is lost to reviews, because at the moment I'm viewing this, within a full interface, but nothing would stop me sharing this to, you guys or somebody else, and immediately seeing it in review mode. So when I'm in review mode, I don't, if I share this with someone, they don't get to play with the timeline because, they're a client or they're someone who's not a video expert, but they can immediately see it back. And at this point they could say, like, I don't know, love this elephant. Oh, like that. They can add their comment onto it. It goes directly into the list. If we go back into the edit, and obviously I can do that, it's immediately there. It's a comment on the timeline. It's something that's immediately been put into the system. And what we noticed was that when people are able to correct things really fast, you just cut out all of that lengthy, what we call production hell, where something just gets, especially at the end of the production, you're just going around in circles and like, oh, that person's name is spelled wrong, and like, we need to do this, to the point where we met with a production company and they explicitly say we have 3 rounds of like amendments, like no more, like you've got to get it in those 3 rounds. And then they talked about the time that it takes to do that, and it was like, this is potentially a 3-week process. And we're like, well, actually, video is this amazing, effective form of communication, but for whatever reason, the time that it takes to produce it has obviously come down. The cameras are far cheaper, far more accessible. The software is better. Everything is better, but it still takes 3 weeks to do a project minimum. Like, it's just, there's an unwritten rule. And our mission is definitely to make that quicker, because you make more real-time decisions.
Sumit, how does Elevate.io handle things like editor prioritization? If I'm going to go in and change something, and let's say an editor at a more senior level than me has already decided he wants to lock it in place, how do we keep conflicts like that out of the system?
So you can lock things down. I'm locking Kel out now, so he's locked out of this. Depends on who has, who's the owner of the product. What we do want to do is not build a system that has lots of checks and balances. I know that sounds counterintuitive, that has tons of checks and balances. We want to build a system that is more akin towards modern working, which is, I trust the user that I'm sharing this with, and they can break that trust, and then we'll have something to deal with. But what we found when using this, and it was the same with Figma, when we were designing, even back in my Vegas days, when we were designing all the marketing materials, it didn't get out of hand. It didn't become a question of like, I have the key, you don't have the key. Everybody sort of began to respect it. And if anything, it actually enhanced the level of respect within projects, that you weren't going to mess up someone's stuff. And that, we don't have multiple sequences yet within the project, but we are building out multiple sequences. So there's nothing wrong with versioning something off and saying like, okay, I'm going to go work it on it over here. And there's nothing wrong with the owner locking down a sequence, going like, this is the final bit. Like, we're not going to allow this to be messed with. So we're trying to keep it light. We don't want it to become bureaucratic. We actually believe that trusting people creates a better environment.
I saw on the website that there was some discussion of AI integration coming or in there already. Where do you look at that? Security, performance, training things, generative voice pieces coming in. What's on the roadmap there?
So we've already integrated text-to-speech and AI image generation. And of course, we're going to be onboarding at all of the new video libraries which are coming through thick and fast. But for us, the AI side of things is really an assist. So we're really looking at it as, how does AI assist the editing process? The user is still in control, and we are not a system where it's like you just throw it something and the AI magically does something with it. That's not the angle that we're going down. We are a professional editing tool, and we have these assisting technologies which will help you to create the generative element that you have in your edit, to help you remove the ums and ahs, or to help you do things like transcription, voice clear up, tidy up, redubbing. So there's plenty of opportunities, and we are going to be expanding our AI capabilities with more and more vendors who are providing the infrastructure. And again, being based in the cloud, we're right next to the data centers that do this. So it's a lot easier for us to build that in than it is for a desktop client piece of software to actually build in things like AI.
We are a system driven by our viewers' questions, and it's time to dive into that now. CJ, what have we got?
First up, it's from Florence Donald in Silver Spring, Maryland. And Florence asks, how is Elevate.io different than Frame.io?
Ah, the .io wars.
The difference is the name, Elevate versus Frame, and that's it.
Oh,
But
done.
Frame is just a review tool. So Frame just provides this. You'd have to export from your existing NLE, upload it, it's versioned, and then it goes off to clients. They can comment, and you collate those comments, and you manually convert them back, into the edit. This is like the review is directly built into the edit, and that's exactly the intention that we want is for immediate changes to be able to happen live, so that there isn't that extra step that's in there.
Let's go to our next question.
Next up is from Nigel Dessau in Orlando, Florida. Nigel asks, for someone moving from an offline to online editing, what is the most significant change in workflow?
I think, the funny thing is, again, we've tried to remove the idea that people have to have this prescribed workflow. It just feels very natural. You upload your files, they get indexed, they get stored, they get archived. You build your project, you get to export. You don't have to think about it as an offline online, like we do because we're from the industry. But actually, when people see this, and we've shown this at events, and we've introduced this to people who've never really done any video editing, and we're telling them all about the advantages of it being a very live system, a very real system, a very browser-based system, their instant response is, isn't it always like that? Like, why would you have this crazy workflow? And we know what it's like. We've worked in production. The workflow starts on the shoot, labeling the memory cards, doing the thing, all of that, and that all of that feels like it's sort of quite stuck in the past. And it does feel that actually, the sooner you can get the content into a system with that enriching of metadata as well, obviously that helps massively. And we will be doing indexing for incoming videos. Then you just don't have to worry so much about your workflow. It's just like everything's just live in there.
I've had this exact same experience. It seems to me that my clients don't really care whether I call something offline or online. What they do care about is if I say to them over and over again, well, this isn't how the eventual one's going to look. We're looking at a rough cut or something like that. I'm seeing less and less clients who understand that what I'm showing you is not what you're going to get. And they want more of what we're talking about right here, which is that you're seeing the actual file being worked on. And as it evolves, you're going to get access to that evolution. Have you had the same kind of experience with the people that this is designed for?
Totally, because the people that we're going for, we're not trying to convert the NLE users at this stage. We don't have the feature parity to do that, but there's a whole bunch of people and organizations and teams that really want to just make video. Like, that's their aspiration. They're not coming at it from a production first principle. They're coming at it from we need to produce something for our website, we need something for Instagram, we need something to go maybe for internal communications, or they're an educator and they're like, I need to produce some content that's going to help people, whether it's online for a course or even being played in the classroom. So they don't come with it from the video production mindset, which is where so many of us, because it was a full-time production, growing up, there was the offline editor, the online editor, the sound mixer, the sound engineer, the recordist, the cameraman. There were so many disparate roles, and we all know what happens now. There's one person with a camera, and they have the software, and the whole thing is just much more meant to happen as if it was just regular productivity software, the same way that people have picked up Figma or Canva. They're just able to use it straight away.
Maybe that transition from I'm a video editor to I'm a content creator, and I'll use whatever tools I need to create my content the way I want to. Let's go to our next question.
Next up from Douglas Carmichael, and Douglas asks, how do you handle audio mixing? Do you support VST3 or similar plugins?
Let's talk about the audio side. Everybody really wants to always know about that.
Audio is crucially important. I know how important it is for you guys with ensuring that we all have great audio before the show. And that is absolutely true with the product that we built. At the moment, we have very simplistic audio. We have the waveforms. You can obviously trim them. You can change the volumes, and you can move them around. But we don't have, as yet, the mixing and the dynamics and EQ and other things, and certainly support for VST plugins. We don't have that yet. We have great plans to start off with AI tools to help with things like cleanup and dubbing. but we absolutely want to build in AI processing, and there's more than enough power to do this even within the browser to a limit. We're not going to have 1,000 tracks. We're not competing with Pro Tools, just like we're not competing with the higher end of DaVinci Color. So we will provide, like I said, dynamics, EQ, and plugins that will be suitable for the market that we're aiming for.
And I don't want to gush, and if I could just jump in
Sure,
a
go
second,
for it,
it blows my mind that this is in a browser. You were very clear about, hey, we're not trying to replace the heavy iron tools that are out there that like a DaVinci or something, but the thought of being able to run this on modest hardware in a browser just kind of makes my head spin. Just
there's what I could actually show you if you're able to pull my screen back up. If I can get the zoom bit out of the way, you may be able to see my screen right now.
Yes.
This is a little preview stuff. It's always good to show people who are interested some of what's coming, but we're actually pushing the envelope of what's possible within the browser. And I'll give you some examples. These are some of the new transitions that we're using, which are more 3D based. So immediately you'll get the ability to do things like cubes. You'll get the ability to do, like smooth edges, things like that. And this one here, I think, is a ripple, which is happening. So all of those are happening directly, like straight through the GPU in the browser, two sources together, and it doesn't even flinch or slow down. My FPS is still running at like 120 on this computer. So it gives you a much more fluid, you can really get an idea of what's possible even within a browser, because the tools are now there. The tooling is in place, and the way our codec and the way that our interface with the GPU works, it's all very low level C++ code, which is all compiled to run in the browser. So we're finally seeing the capabilities of a browser, like we're utilizing them to the max, and we're utilizing things like the worker threads within the browser so that we can parallelize different tasks. And even if you look at, for example, this is again a little sneak peek of our subtitling, which is coming in. When you see here and you go to do things like changing the style, we have to obviously regenerate all of the subtitles, but the whole thing happens so fast. So you don't, you can immediately say, okay, well, look, let's have this type of UI. And it's going through, it's created all of the subtitle files. And the one thing that you'll notice that some of the subtitle users may find is that mostly in NLEs, you give it your edit and then the subtitles appear and then you can't change the edit because everything is like just being done according to the edit. Here, the way that we're doing it is we're enriching. So from a metadata point of view, the subtitles actually live with the clip. So if you move the clip around, the subtitles are going with it. If you trim or you bring things back, the subtitles are always going to be there. And of course, you can tweak them, exactly how they, when they come in or not, but it's all relative to the clip itself. So you don't get that experience that you sometimes get where you finished a project and of course there's the ultimate, no, we need to change this, or this person said the wrong thing. Well, throw away all the subtitles, do it again, remake your edit, re-subtitle everything.
It's a little bit like the Final Cut process of attaching magnetically things that you do once. So once you do it, it's done, and you don't have to keep going back and reattaching things that change as your edit changes. We still have a lot of questions floating in. Let's get to the next one. CJ?
Next up's from Dan Browning in Victor, Montana. Dan asks, would there be any direct integration to import video files from Vimeo? I'm looking to move 23 terabytes out of Vimeo. Vimeo's editors are bad, even just a cut.
Dan, we feel your pain. Sumit, do you have any help for him?
We haven't even considered that use case of moving that way. We've considered pushing to Vimeo, but not the other way. The way that the product is built out is there are three types of plugin. There's an input plugin, processing plugins, and output plugins. At the moment, we're producing all of them, but we will be opening that up to third parties who will be able to produce their own input plugins. So it could be a niche camera that has or like a lecture recorder that has some processing power, and it may want to send us the content. Then you've got the processing plugins at the moment, some of the effects I just showed you, which are all basically GL, WebGL based, that people will be able to write their own and they upload it to the marketplace, and then exporting, going directly to YouTube and Vimeo. And we'd not considered taking from Vimeo because it always feels like Vimeo is a play out, but there's no reason why it wouldn't be on the other side a way to actually source the content from Vimeo the same way that you may want to source content from Google Drive or Dropbox.
It reminds me of one of my biggest wows in maybe 6-7 years ago. I realized that my Vimeo account and my Frame.io account, which I don't any longer have, were sourced on the same servers, so that literally pushing one from Vimeo into my pushing one from Frame into my Vimeo thing was a matter of clicking a button, and it just instantly appeared there. So in the long run, the connection of these cloud resources may end up making this easier and easier. We can certainly hope so. Next question.
Next up's Robert Green in Los Angeles. Robert asks, will your tools be used at the Winter Olympics?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we can't comment on which sporting events we are used on, but the biggest ones.
All right. Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana asks, how do you handle access for freelancers? How do you limit their browsing through other projects?
Yeah, that brings up a good little bit about security and things like that on the back end and people being able to touch the projects. What say you?
It does. So if you flick back to my screen, what you'll see is when I go to invite somebody, if I put in an email address and then I choose them to be just a reviewer or just an editor, but I don't give them access, they don't have access to the team. It means that they're confined within this this project only. It means that they can only touch resources which are there. They can't delete stuff which belongs to the the wider team. They can upload stuff, of course. They're going to be a freelancer. They're going to be contributing. They can obviously do the subtitles. They can run any of the features, but they are let's call quarantined within inside that project only. And the reviewers, they just get that review interface that I said. They can only comment on stuff. And we will be making actually a view-only user as well, where it is literally just like, well, let's just share this with people. We don't want their comments, but this is for them to see.
Is there any version management stuff on? We don't want to lose our, project 705.3 final, absolute final. That's very important to us psychologically.
Yeah. We absolutely are building in the multiple sequences, which will be similar to a version management.
Got it.
But
next question.
Go ahead. Another thing we've found is that, of course, in tools like Figma or some of the more modern tools where they're very real time, you start to move away from versions, and you really tend to end up with, this is the live cut. This is the source of truth is the latest thing because it's so accessible. I think versioning is a function of systems that are very linear and that have a big feedback loop. You remove that feedback loop because you've got this real-time system, versioning numbers just fall away.
Next question.
From Douglas Carmichael, how do you compete with major vendor-backed solutions like Avid Edit On Demand?
I think we're different than there are the products at the higher end and there are products at the lower end. We've set ourselves in the middle. We're absolutely not the lower end web-based video editors where you can't load that 45-minute, just drag a 45-minute reel into the timeline, chop it up, get instant access to it. That just wouldn't work with those tools. They're designed for very short form content, mainly at Instagram, and they're not an editing experience. They're more of an assembly tool. So we don't compete at that end because this is, as you've seen, it's a professional tool. The timeline is sophisticated. But at the higher end, I do understand that there are obviously some of the higher end vendors have systems that are tied into broadcast playout and other more elaborate engines. I think it comes down to cost. I mean, the cost of the product that's a different proposition. That's a really large organization is going to go down that path. Whereas for us, this is more, you could be a YouTuber or you could be a student or you could be a teacher and you can just buy, your little team that stays very small, or you're an organization with 20 people and, you scale accordingly. So I think it's just that we sit in the middle. We're not too fussed by the top 10% and we're not fussed by the bottom 10%.
Next question.
From Ronnie Hofsoy in Tromsø, Norway, will the UI also support iPad and phones as well?
Are you in iOS?
Yeah, you can get it on an iPad. It just it does work. We have an upload experience that works on iOS and Android. So that if you want to just get content into the system, but in terms of providing the editing tools, our editor is just a little bit too sophisticated to work on a phone. But we will be putting more effort into iPad and of course, more effort into helping people get content in. So the first port that we've already put to anybody who signs up is free to sign up, and you do navigate to your account on an iPhone in the browser, you will get an interface which is much more tailored towards the iPhone or the Android.
Next question.
Wayne Netter in Mumbai, Australia asks, how much is it? Hopefully it's not the $1 million question, but first time user.
It's very effective. At the moment, you can buy into the product. A team costs $15 or a month. So that gives you access for 5 users. They can produce content, a fair amount of storage that you get with that. Of course, if you breach or go above that storage limit, you can add more storage as you go. And you get an amount of AI tokens that you can use every month that just renews, or you can buy a whole bulk of them, with a discount, and they can just sit in your account forever.
So it's basically a subscription model at $15 a month is the lowest tier.
Currently, yes.
Yes. CJ, you want to get
on a per use after you exceed the 5 user threshold, is it in chunks, or do you start to tack on additional per user or per seat sort of fees with that?
It's additional users per seat, and it's prorated. So if you have someone who's in the project just for 5 days, then that will be a prorated amount on the bill for the next month of one user for 5 days.
And if you have somebody that's just a review user or just a view only user, does that counts?
They're free.
Okay, they're cool.
Good. So you can get review people in to look at things without really shouldering additional costs.
Correct.
Yeah. Excellent. CJ, are you satisfied with that?
The last question I had was as far as getting your stuff in and out. Earlier, we spoke about kind of some of the differences between, Frame versus Elevate in terms of cloud platforms for sharing things. One of my favorite features of Frame is that is how fast it is. Sometimes it feels like I'm staring into the sun in terms of how much and how quick things move up and down. So we know that the experience in the browser is great for editing and for moving around, and it has to be obviously very lean in order to do that. But if you were trying to download the full fat assets, what is that like?
We run off Amazon AWS, and I don't know which data center Frame uses, but we have pretty fast access to the files. So once it's going to definitely take longer to conform the video. It depends on the length of the video, obviously. But once it's downloading, if your internet connection is fast and it's anywhere near an AWS data center, you'll get very fast download from that. I don't have exact numbers because obviously it varies so much by the nature of cloud services, but it's fast. The input and the output, and of course, for US customers, that is where we run the service from. So there's an even faster in and out.
Next question.
Next up is from Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. Paul asks, how do you deal with a large body of work on YouTube?
Seems like we have a lot of people who are on YouTube with huge libraries and they want to get them processed. So what's the process?
What I'm learning from today's call, which is why this is such a great opportunity for us, is to understand that that's a workflow that people would want to do. We've always assumed that you're pushing to those those platforms, but if it is actually more a case of actually here's my login and I actually want this on an input side as well, then that's something that we'll definitely look at. And at the moment, the only method would be you download the video that you've uploaded, or you have the access to it already, and then you bring it into Elevate.
Yeah, it's interesting to me to think about. It seems like we're hearing from the audience that a lot of people have now libraries of content in one service or another, and they're feeling like there's a compelling reason. They're feeling locked in or something that's telling them, I need to get my work from here so I can put it over there, and that there's not much available for that. Is that the sense everybody else gets about this?
Yeah, and I think there's something more to it as you said that I was just thinking, which is that we know that the archive experience is bad in video. We know that everyone knows they have the hard drive, they have it somewhere in the cupboard, even if they can see it. Building that back into a project because the version of Premiere changed or something happened or it's not so easy. We know that once you finish the project, they very, very rarely get accessed again. So even though you shot something, it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to get hold of that we immediately knew that with Elevate, the asset management and digital asset management has to be a first-class citizen of the product. It has to be something that is built into it from the outset. That we have it very clearly in the UI. There is the team button. You even from within a project, you can immediately access anything that has ever gone in that system and search for it. And obviously, with the metadata that we'll be adding, that'll be even further enriched. But I think that there is some truth in this, that people have built stuff. They don't even know where it came from at this stage, but they know that it is on YouTube or that it is on Vimeo. So it's like, how do we get it back? Because I want to reference something that was in that video. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I'm actually experiencing that. I hadn't thought about it either, but I have a lot of clients who come in to do something with a project, and they said, if you've got the great project, the project file is excellent, but can you just bring down the file off of YouTube, and can we just make a simple change to that? People want that a lot. So, next question.
From Ronnie Hofsoy in Tromsø, Norway. Syncing, multicam, timecode. Just wondering, what's on the roadmap?
We will support multicam. So at the moment, each individual clip is actually a timeline in itself. So we built it from the outset with not only being able to pull timelines into timelines, but actually being able to delve into a clip and say, actually, let me add, 3 or 4, 5 other tracks to that. We do a lot of multicam in Blackbird product, which obviously this is based on the same engine of. So multicam is definitely going to be supported.
Next question.
From Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. Is billing for online storage through elevate.io only, or can I use my own online storage?
What's the back-end cost?
Yeah, at the moment, our storage is, we are the only provider of that storage. Of course, there's nothing to stop you when we build the input from sort of Dropbox. You could hold a lot of stuff there if you wanted and bring in stuff as and when you need it, if you didn't want to be paying for it twice. But the storage that we need to access it because we need it to be definitely available there at any point in time. Whether we expand that down the line so that we can peer into other S3 buckets is a potential, but it may not provide the same fidelity in terms of us always knowing that something's there. If we're in control of it, it's easier.
Let's go to the next question.
Samuel Nordvik in Norway asks, how many video and audio tracks does Elevate allow on the timeline?
Is there a point where performance is?
I think we can, I believe, top of my head, it's about 32 that, or maybe it's like 16 video and 32 audio. So you can just add them, as you go. And it really doesn't make much of an impact at all on the product in terms of how it plays them back. Because, if I throw some on, make them, we'll have one video there. We've got some captions playing. We'll have another video here. Layering is, again, really quite performant. I mean, I'm just running 3 layers there, but the whole thing is just instantly going to play back and it's going to scrub with really good fidelity.
Next question.
Wayne Netter in Mumbai, Australia asks, any automatic highlight reel features, trimming a 2-hour sport live stream into 5-minute highlights, for example?
We want to enrich with AI services that exact thing. If it's like cut down a podcast because we've got the transcription, like let's just summarize it and get an early edit done. So that's where we will be building out tools. I mean, it was so key and so important for us to get the infrastructure right for this product, before we started adding all the bells and whistles. And I hope your users can see, we put a lot of effort into making sure that we have all the right tools and we have all the right experience of how things, get trimmed or move around. And on the top of that, now we can build in, because we have all of that and it is very controllable, we can now build in AI services that will actually perform some of those roles.
Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana asks, how smooth, quick, and accurate is it with multiple layers and composited video? Could we demo a title over 4 composited layers, which I do all the time?
Well,
I think we're almost there with it, but I'm gonna add some more in just to prove the point. So we're compositing up. We've got 4 videos, but I don't want to. We're bringing the zebras back in. So now the zebras are involved. They're now part of the game, and of course we can. Yeah, let's stick them there, and then we'll add another track actually above there. So I'm going to push my audio down. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos there. Let's put some text in there as well, just to sit above. So, hello world. Let's add that in there. You can make that slightly bigger. Let's give it another color so we know that it's different. And again, the whole thing is just going to play it back with no stutter, nothing. It'll just sit there, run it. I can JK and edit, go backwards on it.
You're scrubbing along lovely.
So
Yeah.
how long does it take? I mean, if you're uploading assets, how long is it from, obviously the length of the clip is going to matter, but it's going to have to transcode into your proprietary codec in order to get that fluidity, right? Is there a big processing time from after you upload your assets for the first time?
It's roughly real time, roughly, depends on how busy transcoding art is. And of course, we want to constantly improve this and constantly throw resources, like cloud resources, to actually get that down, because the task is very easy to paralyze. We will be doing more of that later. So at the moment, we're definitely running our infrastructure as like one process in, one process out. But in the future, we have plans, again, because of the nature of our codec, where each of the all the data is, so it's not one long file that's requires it to be kept as one long file. It is actually lots of different bit streams, and so it's easy for us to break it up and make that process faster down the line, and GPU accelerate that. So I mentioned that we'll be bringing out a new codec to supersede the one that we have, which is already best in class, but we want it to be higher quality and more accurate, and it will do better for GPU style encoding. So we expect that to get faster, but it is a concern that people have, because they can take the memory card out of their camera and they can put it straight into their laptop, and they could theoretically edit straight away and NLE off that. And it does feel like, oh, that's going to be annoying that I have to upload this and this process has to take place. But once you sort of just factor that into the way things work, it doesn't really feature as that much of a problem. You just you put it there, you upload it, you start to work on the project, and bit by bit the files just sort of fall into place.
Which lends itself to the storage bucket question, because if the assets weren't on your service, then how do you transcode them in the background until somebody connects it? And then that creates a whole nother bunch of things that you need to solve for.
Wow. Next question.
Next up, Douglas Carmichael. One of the use cases you mentioned is the gaming market. With the GPU power of today's gaming PCs, what is your unique selling point in that market versus, say, Resolve?
Do you see there's a significant difference in how those two enterprises will use your product?
Yeah, we are massively popular in gaming. Like, that's one thing that we noticed from the outset, was how many people use us to pull together gaming content. And they tend to use it to trim stuff down, because they record it in OBS or something like that, or record it out to an Elgato card. And then they just want to trim it down, and because they want to repurpose it and put it on YouTube. And I think for us, it works quite well. We don't have at the moment live ingest, but a big part of the Blackbird infrastructure is being able to take things like RTMP, SRT, NDI directly into the product. And so we will be supporting going forward things like RTMP. So it could be that OBS, you as you're gaming, you could just be sending it directly to us, and then we'll instantly have it available for you to edit.
That Let's Play universe is voracious and huge.
It is.
Next question.
Next question is from Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana again. And Roscoe asks, any subframe audio adjustments for accurate syncing?
You can detach the audio files, and you can mark them, and you could reattach them once you've made an adjustment. We don't have I want a 4 frame offset on this audio because it's gone out of sync. But that's an interesting feature, something that we would consider.
We've talked about a lot, but unfortunately we're at the end of our hour for all intents and purposes. I want to first and foremost thank Sumit for coming in and showing us your product. It's been a joy. Is there any last message that you would like to send out to the audience before we wrap things up?
What I'd love people to do is to go to Elevate.io, sign up for free, and try out the product. And keep in mind that it is early days for us, but follow our journey and give it a go and see how well it performs.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I want to thank my co-panelist, CJ, for coming in and helping us with today's show. And don't forget, we are doing something every day. Our basic alignment of shows has changed a little bit, but we're here doing something. So you can always come back and take a look. I have to say thank you, not just to our guest Summit, but to also the crew in the back end, to Jeff, Laura, Josh, Robert, Andre. Always with Office Hours, we are amazingly grateful for you who watch the show, for the incredible panelists who come in here every single day on all of our shows up and down through the day, and of course to the amazing back end crew who makes this all possible every day. We'll be back tomorrow. I think tomorrow tomorrow's regular show time. So tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Pacific time. We'll be back with the regular Office Hours. Then on Thursday, David Paskin's show, and more as we come through the weekend. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
That was so cool. Thank you.
Yeah, nice demo. Thank you.